Hello everyone, welcome back to Azure DevOps Learning Hub. If you have been following our Kubernetes series, thank you so much for your support. Now in today's video, we will learn what is Ingress. For example, if you have a Kubernetes cluster and multiple applications are deployed in it, so how the users on the internet access those applications? So the answer is Ingress. So by the end of the video, we'll understand what is Ingress, why it's needed, how it's work. Let's get started. We'll understand why we needed ingress. So if you have a cluster, Kubernetes cluster, and it has suppose 5 different applications, one in front end, back end, maybe Prometheus, Jenkins, and Grafana in it. Now, when we are exposing every application using a load balancer service, Kubernetes will ask the cloud provider to create a separate external load balancer for each of the service. That means front end will get a one IP, back end another, and so on. Now this approach might work, but it can create two major problems. Just think for a while. What kind of problem it can create? Yes. Number one is cost. Because each load balancer is built separately, so the cost will increase. Second, multiple IP address is going to create a confusion. Very difficult to handle because the applications will grow. So we have a smarter way, and that is how we are using Ingress. One IP address, no need of creating multiple load balancers, single entry point when all the requests are incoming. In short, Ingress controller examine every request and forward it to the correct application. To make it simpler, imagine you're living in a building and the building has only one main entrance. So when a visitor is coming, they don't directly enter every apartment. First they meet the security guard, then he will tell, okay, flat number 303, over here. Flat number 505, go over here. That's exactly how Ingress works. If anyone asks you in an interview maybe, what is Ingress? Or are you aware about Ingress? So you need to understand that Ingress is a Kubernetes API object. Now it is used for defining routing of HTTP and HTTPS traffic to the services which are present inside the cluster. Notice something important here now. Ingress is not sending the traffic directly to the pods. Instead, what it does is it will forward all this traffic to Kubernetes services. So the definition what we said earlier, if you recollect, it was like it is going to route HTTP and HTTPS traffic to services inside the cluster, not to the pods. Now, once the traffic is gone to the services, then the services will go and route this request to the appropriate pods. So, if someone asks you what does an ingress do or how do you use it in Kubernetes, so don't randomly answer like it is routing the traffic to the pods. You can say ingress always routes traffic to services, not directly to pods. Now we'll see what are the components of it or how we will see like what exactly is in Ingress. So the architecture is like a user opens a browser, then it sends a request. The request reaches an external load balancer. Then from there it gets forward to the Ingress controller. Ingress controller reads the rules what are defined in the ingress. Then based on those rules, it will follow the request to the correct Kubernetes service. Finally, the service is going to send the request to one of the running pods. So the flow is browser or client, load balancer. Then we have ingress controller. From controller, we have ingress rule. Then we have the services, and from services, it is going to the pod. So this architecture provides a centralized routing and it is better for scalability. We'll understand what is Ingress controller here. So many beginners like me, in the beginning even I was thinking like creating an Ingress resource is enough, but eventually understand it is not, because Ingress resource only contains the rules in it, like the routing rules. It is not able to process any traffic by itself. So when you have an Ingress resource, it would need someone who would process the traffic. Resource will have only rules, but someone to process the traffic, and that work is done by the Ingress controller. So it will read those rules and then enforce them. So we have different kind of Ingress controllers that we work across, like we have NGINX Ingress controller, then we have HA proxy, Azure application gateway Ingress controllers, and so on. So if you don't have this, the resource is not going to function. We'll look at the path routing. How does the routing happens? Let's say your website is some example.com, and then we have different paths that can point to different services, like we have a shop which goes to shop service, or a blog that will go to the blog service, or an API for going to the back end, etc. Now all the users are going to access the same domain, but Ingress is going to route the traffic, each request based on the path, on the URL path. Now this will make it easy to host multiple applications behind a single domain. Another common routing strategy is host-based routing. Now here what happens is a routing decision is based on the name, on the domain name instead of the path. So if the domain name is shop.company.com, then it's a shop application. Similarly, hr.company and so on. So all these domains can use the same external IP address. Ingress looks at the host name first and then forwards the request to the correct service by comparing the names. Now we'll understand YAML in Ingress, how it works. Okay, so we'll go ahead with each of the section one by one. So we have, first is the code in which we have the API version, then what is the kind Ingress, then we have the metadata, Ingress class name, we'll have the rules, host, the path, the backend, then service and the port. So don't worry about this file if it is looking confusing right now, but when you go ahead and create one or two Ingress resources, it is going to become very familiar to understand. Okay, so this is like hands-on demo. So in this we can go ahead and implement everything. So first we will create an deployment. For that we are going to use the command kubectl create deployment web image, and then which is nginx. Then with kubectl expose deployment web type cluster IP address, we are going to expose the cluster IP service. So we can, for example, we can use kubectl expose deployment web, and the port number and the target port number and the type will be cluster IP. Now in order to create the YAML file and apply it, we will use kubectl apply command. So the file will get created. Now the file is created. So we will check whether everything is fine. For that, verifying will be done using the command kubectl describe ingress or get ingress. So in that we will be able to see it in detail. How, like whether the file has been created properly and what. Let's go ahead with few of the interview questions around it quickly. What is ingress? What is the difference between service and ingress? Why do we need an ingress controller? Can ingress route traffic directly to the pods? The answer is no, of course. It routes traffic to services. And what is the difference between NodePort, load balancer, and ingress? Understanding these concepts will definitely help us in real world projects as well as in the interviews. Few of the best practices that we can remember are we need to use HTTPS whenever possible. TLS certificates has to be configured and always prefer a single load balancer in case we have multiple applications. Use some meaningful host names and paths. Need to have ingress controller monitoring in place. Routing rules need to be organized and easy to maintain. They improve security and performance and maintainability. This is the architecture. Common mistakes that we do is no controller or wrong service or wrong port, missing ingress class name. Summary. So I understand like now we are able to understand the most important networking concept of Kubernetes. That is what is ingress, why we use, how traffic flows, role of the controller, what are the different routing methods we are using, practical demonstration of the commands, few of the common interview questions. In the next video, we will learn a bit about Helm, how we use it in Kubernetes. I hope this video was helpful. Please like this video, leave your questions in the comments, subscribe to the DevOps Learning Hub, and share this video with anyone learning Kubernetes. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Happy learning.